Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal's arrest has now become an international affair. Now, this is because Sebastian Fischer, a spokesperson of German Foreign Ministry, decided to discuss Kejriwal's arrest at a press conference. He said that like anyone facing accusations, Mr. Kejriwal is entitled to fair and impartial trial. This includes the fact that he can make use of all available legal avenues without restrictions, and that the presumption of innocence is a central element of the rule of law which must apply to him. Responding to this, the Ministry of External Affairs issued a statement saying that they see such remarks as interfering in our judicial process and undermining the independence of our judiciary. The MEA has also said in a statement that biased assumptions made on this account are most unwarranted. Well, what's here for Germany to comment is the big question. Joining us at this point is Professor Madhav Nalapat, editorial director of the Sunday Guardian. Let me begin with you first, Professor Nalapat. What do you make of this statement that the Germans issued on Mr. Kejriwal's arrest?
Well, I was a bit surprised because the UK has for the longest time, I think because of memories of the British Empire in the 19th century, they have assumed the right to basically lecture the whole world. Now, that is in the 19th century. The 20th century was Pax Americana. So that that kind of boosted the ego of the Americans. And the Americans also joined the British in thinking that they have the right to lecture over the whole world and to basically teach all of us, the rest of us, as to how to go about our lives. I'm a bit surprised that Germany did this, because Germany never had that kind of an empire. And there's never been a Pax Germanica. Now, of course, it is an unfortunate reality that in the 1930s and early 1940s, there was an attempt to set up a Pax Germanica, but that didn't end very well for the Germans. So I'm a bit surprised by this, because this kind of a remark reeks of a kind of a feeling of superiority. And I think that doesn't really fit well with a global order in which the global South is playing an important role and India is playing a very important role, even though it's part of the global South. I mean, we are, both in terms of economic development, in terms of development, joint development of technologies. In so many ways, India and Germany have much to gain from a very good relationship with each other. Both the Germans are really an outstanding people. They're very hardworking, they're very productive, and I really can't believe that too many of them have this kind of sense of superiority, which unfortunately the Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock, who is prone to this kind of lecturing and hectoring, seems to have. So my only point is, India and Germany are good partners, whether in security in the Indo-Pacific, whether in matters of defense, in matters of trade, in people-to-people relations. And I don't think that's going to be affected by this kind of absurd remark. But I'm very glad that the External Affairs Ministry has taken cognizance of it and has basically told the Germans that, look, Berlin is the capital of Germany and it's not the capital of India. So please don't interfere in our internal affairs. I think that is a very welcome message, and I'm glad it was conveyed very forcefully to the German side. But again, I want to add, I'm surprised that Germany has got this Anglo-Saxon virus of trying to believe that the whole world needs their wisdom and the whole world needs their guidance. I'm really surprised.
Absolutely. Let me also bring in Pathikrit Pain, international affairs expert, into the discussion. Pathikrit, as far as Germany's decision to comment on this, what has spurred that? Pathikrit, are you surprised at the fact that Germans commented on this particular matter?
Good evening. First of all, yes, it is surprising. There is no denial of it. But at the same time, the selective approach is something which is more appalling. For example, in the recent past, there has been many other arrests. For example, the arrest of, Hemant Soren, who was the former Chief Minister of Jharkhand. There was no voice from Germany. So K. Kavita was arrested. No comments on that from Germany. And suddenly, in case of Kejriwal, there is a lot of comment. There is a lot of as if they're rattled. So that actually that puts a lot of question mark as to what is the special relation that some of these Western countries, Western media houses do have with Kejriwal. Generally, they have been very supportive of Kejriwal for a lot of curious reasons, which maybe I'm not privy to. But frankly speaking, there are two aspects to it. Number one, Uday, first of all, India is a very vibrant democracy. It has an extremely neutral judicial system. In this particular case, the Chief Minister of Delhi had been sent 9 summons. He had exhausted all options. He had gone to the Delhi High Court. He had gone to the Supreme Court. It's only after he did not get any relief from any place, it's only after that there were enough evidence that he was not cooperating with the investigation or the questioning that Enforcement Directorate actually arrested him. After that also he was taken to the court, and court gave him remand to ED for 6 days. So I think everything has been happening as per the rules of law, and the rules of PMLA are very well known. So in that context, I don't know why Germany should react to it. I don't know how the German courts would have reacted differently had there been such a strong and profound allegation of corruption and money laundering as allegedly is there in this case. But on the larger context, the general tendency of Western countries to needle, to pontificate, to question developing countries or emerging powerhouses like India on every issue, that is not surprising to me, because they think what is happiness, they think they know best what is happiness, so they come out with indexes where they're trying to project even countries like Palestine or places like Palestine, Ukraine happier than India. They come out with a hunger index with their own idiosyncratic definition of hunger to project that Pakistan and Sri Lanka are better off than India. And that is the ridiculous nature of West today, where they have tried to control the narrative for so long, since 1945, that today, even when they have become ridiculous in their approach, they still believe that if they say it, the world must accept it. So I think these countries should come to senses. We must also not forget Germany is the country. It may be a changed country today, but it's the country which has been primarily responsible for the Second World War and the genocide that happened there during that time. We should also not forget the number of conflicts that Germany and many other countries have been involved in. So in that context, India generally has never commented on the internal aspects of other countries. And as an Indian, on one side, I am very proud of that we do not interfere in the affairs of other countries. But I think it's high time we start doing it, because we have to, in certain way, give them back in the same coin and speak in the language they understand. It's because we never interfere on their internal affairs. It's because we never come up with our own indexes of gun violence, propensity to conflicts, funding of conflicts, deep state dangerous games. It's because we don't have indexes of that nature. It's because we are more inward looking, have never tried to lecture the rest of the world, especially the Western world, as to what is right. It's because of that, for every small or largely reason, needless reasons, they will point fingers at us. Recently, Uday, my last point, from the time of COVID, when India went ahead and gave vaccines to 99 or 100 odd countries, to innumerous occasions in the recent past, when Indian Navy had been going ahead and saving, ship after ship from pirates, from all kinds of other elements, it is not the Germans or anyone else doing it. It's the Indians who are doing it. And it is the Indian economy which has been defined as a bright spot in a dark horizon. It is the Indian democracy which continues to be extremely vibrant in spite of a lot of complexities and challenges that we have. So I think it's time the West, give a little due respect to us. Mr. Kejriwal, for whatever reasons he is in jail, it is for the courts to decide. It is not for the German envoy to decide. Likewise, he had won elections. So at that time he was made the chief minister. Everything in this country works according to certain set parameters. In that way, this kind of comment, it is as if, I am not trying to cast aspersion, but it is as if that some of these Western countries have lost a major investment. You speak like that when you lose a major investment. So why they do that? It's up to them to decide. But I think it's high time that they stop doing it, because it doesn't get any traction in India. It doesn't impact the Indian voter so far as their psyche is concerned, and it no more gets the kind of credence they used to get in the past, that the West knows best what is best for the rest. That thing is gone, and the West must realize it. Back to you then.
Right. Let me, in fact, quickly bring in Pradeep Kapoor, former ambassador, for his take. Pradeep Kapoor, do you believe this was spur of the moment? Or do you believe, Ambassador Kapoor, the Germans thought this through and then decided to wade into the Kejriwal row?
Well, these things are never spur of the moment, and I'm surprised that they have made this statement in this context, because as the distinguished panelists before me have enunciated very clearly, this is not acceptable at all. And, there are differences in the context between the different countries. There are political differences, there are cultural differences, sociological differences, and also in terms of their evolution and of their understanding of the various concepts of, judicial process, etc. So for them to make a statement like this is absolutely unwarranted and inappropriate. And India is not the India of the old, where it would not, react, or even if it reacted, it would not be heard. Now, India is a very different country on the international stage, and its voice carries far, and it has got the platform now where it is being heard. So I think the Ministry of External Affairs spokesperson, who was here in New York earlier, has done a very good job of reacting very firmly and strongly. And the German envoy being summoned in Delhi has been absolutely appropriate. I remember before 9/11, for example, even the definition of terrorism as applicable to India was very different from as applicable to the Western world. It was only after 9/11 that suddenly they started seeing terrorists as terrorists, and that otherwise any terrorist being killed in India would be human rights violation of the terrorist, and the terrorists could go and kill any number of people, and that would not bother them at all. Now 9/11 suddenly changed that context for them and for the whole world. Now they don't tell India that you are violating the human rights of terrorists. So the context also evolves over time. Now the judicial process is being followed in India. There were a lot of summons which were sent to him. This was the 9th time the summon was sent to him. He had been taking the plea of going to the court every time and delaying it. And the courts have been refusing him consistently, that they cannot help him in the matter. This is an issue of corruption, and it has to be investigated thoroughly. I don't want to comment about the timing in terms of the elections, etc. But since we are discussing about the German interference in India's internal affairs, I think that is absolutely incorrect, inappropriate, and unwarranted, and has to be challenged in the strongest of language and strongest of terms. And they have to be told where their place is, and that they have no right to interfere in the Indian processes. Back to you, Uday.
Yes, Sanjeev Srivastav, quickly, come in here on, of course, these comments made by the German envoy, the exact statement made by him, and on what really has prompted this. What do you read between the lines into this comment? It's not spur of the moment. It's obviously been thought through, says Ambassador Kapoor. What has, though, made them then do this?
Well, I think it's a mindset which they still carry with regard to dealing with the countries which are not the Western countries, and they feel that still feel that this world is still Eurocentric or the Western thinking-led world. But the reality is that this world has changed, and we are in the third decade of the 21st century, and India is the largest democracy on the planet, vibrant democracy. And we deeply believe in the rule of law, and we abide by it, follow it, and the world takes lesson from us. We do not need any kind of a lesson from a country which has had a very, very negative past, and they must not forget. They must look into their past and practices and behavior which they had in the previous times. Instead of giving lecture to India, which you practiced the democratic principles since we started fighting for our independence. And India has a very strong roots of democracy. Our leader Mahatma Gandhi or B.R. Ambedkar or other leaders, they are signing examples how the democratic roots should be strengthened in a civil society. And Martin Luther King or the various leaders of the whole world, they have drawn lessons from India. And India is a shining example of a vibrant democracy. And the world takes, as I said, lessons from India. India does not require any such lectures or lessons from the Western countries. But as I said in the beginning, it is the mindset which is still prevailing in the Western countries, that it is they who will decide how the democracy should be, or how, as Pratik rightly mentioned, about hunger or the happiness, etc., etc. So I think such kind of a mindset must change. Time has changed, the world has changed, and India will not accept any such remarks. These are totally unwarranted remarks, and I think I'm very proud to say that kind of step we have taken. Our Ministry of External Affairs is really commendable. We have summoned the Deputy Chief of the German High Commission and showed our strong protest. And such protest must be shown time and again till that kind of a mindset changes. So I think, I hope that, as very rightly mentioned by our previous panelists, that we do not, make such remarks. We do not make such official remarks about the internal affairs of whether it is Germany or any other Western countries. So why are they not following the existing, the rules-based order, the UN-led charter, the kind of Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations we have? I think they are just violating those set standards, principles and norms and behavior and the rules which have international community has set. These rules are not only for the developing countries or the non-Western countries to follow. It is they also who were the really into it while such rules were being formed. They must follow it first, and then they start expecting that the other countries will follow such norms and rules and behavior. So I think as we have all said, these remarks are totally unwarranted, and I hope that after this kind of a strong protest which we have shown to the German government, they will draw some lessons from it, and they will stop interfering into the internal affairs of India. And yes, here in this case, law will take its own course. He was avoiding summons over summons, and now after every option was exhausted, he is behind bars, and everything has been done according to the judicial process. And the Indian judiciary, we are all very proud of our judicial system, and the person, whosoever the cases they are facing, they will be treated according to the law. And that is what has been happening in India. So there is no need for any other countries to make such unwarranted remarks, and I hope that they will refrain from it in future.
Now, as far as India's response has been, from our statement, of course, put out earlier, to also the MEA summoning an envoy from the German embassy, do you believe it's been adequate and it was needed, Professor Nalapat?
Look, absolutely. The fact is, Uday, let's say the Indian envoy to Berlin waited in the middle of an election and made comments which essentially criticized the ruling party and making it very obvious that they would like to see an alternative government. I don't know how any German government would react to that. Not very well. So the fact is, the shoe fits both. The shoe should fit India and Germany. And it is quite extraordinary that you have at this sensitive time of the elections an envoy openly making a preference.
Professor Nalapat? I think we've lost him there, unfortunately. Okay, Pathikrit, why don't you come in there on the Indian response? Do you believe it's adequate? How should India, view and react to this statement by the Germans?
Well, I think, the response, I believe, is pretty nuanced. And right now, we don't need to do anything beyond that. But I think over a period of time, we need to show them the mirror. I'll quote Uday, a report which came out in Indian Express on 11th October 2023. And it states that, as per Government of India Ministry of Home Affairs, there are 56 pro-Khalistan entities spread across different countries, including US, UK, Canada, and some of other countries, which are responsible for 15 targeted killings in Punjab over the last 6 years. So many of these Western countries which pontificate on human rights, on rule of law, on various other issues, surprisingly have been responsible for harboring many such elements who have been inimical to India. including, Gurpatpan Singh Pannu and his statements of blowing up, Indian commercial flights on a particular day, if I'm not mistaken, earlier this year. And surprisingly, United States have been pretty silent and okay with it. So I think over a period of time, as I stated earlier, Ambassador Kapoor very rightly mentioned about the definition of terrorism at different yardsticks as to when the whites would be killed or vis-a-vis Indians. So I think over a period of time, we need to respond on the larger context in the long run. We need to have our own indexes. We need to be a little more outward looking, doing research on them and showing them the mirror instead of just being focused on our work, which is fine. There's nothing wrong in that. But I think somewhere in this Kali Yuga, you need to do a little more than just believing that karma will take care of everything. Back to you there.
Professor Nalapat, are you back with us? Would you like to complete your point?
I would like to say that I'm surprised that the German envoy did not comment on India's vaccine diplomacy. I'm surprised that there was no word about the way Indian Navy has acted in protecting so many lives and preventing piracy. Now, these are all matters of great pride and of great significance, including to Germany. I'm surprised the German envoy has not noticed the effective work of India in protecting the sea lanes of the Indo-Pacific, a zone where the Germans have a tremendous interest in. All I can surmise is that he is probably prompted by the foreign minister, who, as I told you before, in my view, has a pronounced superiority complex that unfortunately was common in the first part of the last century in Germany, but which I thought had disappeared now. And probably he was prompted to say this kind of thing. I only want to say the German economy has suffered very badly because of the kind of policies that have been basically pushed by this foreign minister, who basically talks like a war minister. And probably she wants India to share the misery, India to share the pain, and the Indian economy also to suffer the way her policies have made her own economy suffer. Thank you, Uday.
All right, let me quickly bring in Ambassador Kapoor as well. Ambassador Kapoor, do you believe this sort of response by India is adequate or is more needed? Should India also start commenting now on German affairs so they know exactly, what they've done wrong?
Well, I think this is adequate and appropriate and correct. India has been talking to a lot of countries bilaterally. We do not believe in flinging mud to them in the international fora. And I think that is a good approach we have. But what we have to do is become more proactive vis-a-vis Germany bilaterally and start pointing out their mistakes and all the wrong things that they do in their society against their people to them bilaterally in very strong language, so that they understand that we are not keeping quiet, that we also have a mind of our own. And I'm glad that the government of India has been taking up these issues in a very forthright manner and putting it out on the Indian national stage and on the international stage, that we will not brook any such interference in our internal affairs. So I do not think that we need to start pointing it out on the international platforms, but definitely on bilateral platforms it is absolutely necessary and required.
Yes, Sanjeev Srivastav, your closing comments on the way forward now, whether this, you believe, will possibly affect India-Germany relations?
Well, I do not think that it will impact India-German relations in any negative way. But one last point I would like to make here, that we are in the midst of elections, and these elections are very crucial, and the whole world is watching. Also, we need to be wary of a kind of as I have been mentioning, about a left liberal Islamic cabal, which is quite active in the international community, as we all know. And any kind of such kind of George Soros-like conspiracies still could be attempted to hatch. And I think we need to be wary of such groups and individuals who might still try to attempt our current ongoing election process. And that's the serious concern. And I hope that our government will be watching all their such activities and conspiracies, and they will take in action accordingly to deal with them effectively, to allow them to impact our elections in any way. That's what I would like to say at the last.
Ambassador Kapoor, I'll leave the last word to you.
Well, I am glad that Indian government has taken up this interference in our affairs in this very strong manner, and they have to also send a message out to other countries also that this is a sensitive phase. And Germany, for example, has benefited also from Indian ships evacuating foreign nationals and Indian nationals in troubled spots. India has directly benefited Germany in so many ways. Now, for them not to acknowledge, like Professor Nalapat also mentioned about the vaccine diplomacy and all the sea lane protection and the actions against pirates, not make any statement whatsoever of acknowledgement or appreciation or understanding, but talk negatively on an issue like this is something which is absolutely beyond what India will tolerate, and that message has to go home even more strongly if necessary bilaterally.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.